Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Cult Classic Movie Corner. Today I have a guest with me, which is Ben from Cinema Gulp.
Hey, how you doing, Terje?
Hey there! Thanks for joining me on this adventure through time zones.
Thanks for having me, bud.
Yeah, so we are going to talk about a movie that I know you are fond of today.
Yes, sir.
But before that, maybe in case there are some viewers on my channel who doesn't know Cinema Gulp, do you want to say a few words about your channel and who you are?
Yeah, just I am one half of Cinema Gulp. There's me, there's John, there's a whole party of people. We have fun dissecting all types of media, and you can find us at Cinema Gulp here on YouTube.
Yeah, and I highly, highly recommend going and watching their stuff. The editing, I think you're the one who does the editing, right, Ben?
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Big kudos. I've said it to you in person, and I'll say it on my show. I love the way you edit your shows with like using stock footage clips to like emphasize what's being said on the show, often kind of blending information and comedy. I think it's one hell of an entertaining show.
Thank you, man. And so is yours, sir.
Likewise. You're welcome. You're welcome. It's well deserved. Today, we are going to do a small chat about Session 9. Yes, a very small little flick that came out in 2001.
2001. Yeah.
And I have it on good authority that you know this movie quite well and that you've even written a paper on it. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. I wrote a paper about it. Back in college, I was in a class called The Aesthetics of Cinema in film school. And it was a brief paper. It was just about the atmosphere. It was based on the atmosphere because the goal of the paper was to try to talk about how can you, with next to no budget, which Session 9 had none almost, how can you make that so scary? And yeah, it's in the writing, and yeah, it's in the great performances in this movie, but the atmosphere and the editing and the cinematography and the decision making of this movie was perfect. Every decision made from pre-production to go to Danvers, where Brad Anderson drove past Danvers every day of his life. So he's like, I want to go shoot something in there. And being able to get that location, it kind of creates its own environment, but at the same time, they didn't really get to shoot in that hospital as much as you think. It's all just great camera work. So
okay. Yeah, well, the location itself is amazing, and being able to kind of work off of that great like palette or template, just using the real location. I think the whole concept of them being a team going in, cleaning asbestos is just hazmat workers is cool. Just in case someone hasn't seen the movie, of course, this is going to be a spoiler conversation, but basically it's about this team of workers. They have like a personal relationship with each other. They kind of have a banter. Some of them don't like each other, but they get hired to do a asbestos and general cleanup of this place that is previously in an insane asylum, I guess. Because it's going to be repurposed to be used for like office spaces, which seems kind of unlikely with how this place looks. It's not ready to move into for sure.
No, I think their job was to get rid of any of the hazardous asbestos that was located in certain areas, not because the place was immediately ready for anything like that. I think it was going up for auction. So, or there was like a bid or something on the land, or no one knew what they were going to do with that, but they needed people to be able to go in and out of it. So they needed to get rid of that asbestos. But yeah, the place is a wreck, and that's what's so beautiful about it. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's one of those places you want to go at nighttime and like see if you can see any ghosts.
Well, that movie, it got cult status later, It didn't blow up like the Blair Witch Project did, but
Mhm.
Session 9 did inspire these overnight sleep people, teenagers and college kids. They go to Danvers, the real Danvers, and they stay in it overnight. There's lots of people
Okay.
that have done blogs on it and YouTube clips on it, the way that people would go into the forest of Maryland and sleep where the Blair Witch was shot. It's just a
Yeah.
fun thing to do, like Halloween night or whatever. But it's crazy that Session 9's become a cult thing where people go into Danvers and try to see how long they can stay in there, because it's just so creepy, period, you know?
We actually have a couple of similar places in Norway that are popular for exactly the same reason. Well, this movie, I understand it was shot on very early digital cameras.
The first digital camera that
Yeah.
offered 24 frames a second, which was not common at the time. It was always 29.997. So it has that film look texture to it, and due to some crafty lighting, but it obviously is shot on video. You know, there's lots of
Yeah,
ways.
I recently saw it like a couple of weeks ago on the Blu-ray release, and it's quite flat, even though it's good. There's good lighting and everything, but it has that video quality that kind of dates it, maybe.
Especially a lot of the outside shots, I noticed.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though, like maybe they could have, because it was early days of video and trying to figure out a way to manipulate it to look like film, because most of this movie was natural lighting, which when you think about that, you're like, oh, it was pretty creative and inventive for being mostly natural light, you know, and maybe that has something to do with the way it was captured and the way it looks. I agree with you on that stuff completely. That's why the sound design is so important to a movie like this, to really to bring out and make it pop in all those ways. It takes your mind out of the fact that it's like, oh yeah, this is like kind of an old-fashioned video look to it at this point.
Yeah. And I have to admit, I saw this movie like years and years and years ago, probably when it first came out on DVD.
Yep, me too.
And I did not like it the first time I saw it. I was a lot younger. I think I expected another movie than what I got, because like the cover had some quotes on it that kind of made reference to Silent Hill.
Those damn marketing people.
Yeah, fucking marketing people. And I just didn't. Well, I thought it was kind of long. I didn't have a lot of things going. Not a lot of things happened. But when I rewatched it now, like probably like almost 10 years later or more, yeah, even more, maybe almost 20, completely different view on this movie. I've watched a lot more film. My tastes have grown, and what I really appreciated this time was the whole way the movie is built up. It's a slow burner. The pacing is really good. I think the characters are all very well made. They feel believable, and the small arguments they have seem like the ones that you would find on a workplace like that. I find it really funny that they have like a week to do this stuff, and it seems like they hardly do any work. One of the guys
that's what we said in our review. They don't do shit the whole time.
No, they're useless. One guy is just down in the basement listening to tapes. He's not working at all. And then you have like the main character who is slowly, seemingly going insane, and it's really interesting seeing the development of these characters.
Yeah.
And I don't think I kind of got what the movie maker was trying to tell with the story the first time I saw it. I think I got it better this time. But I still think it's up for debate.
Yeah, it is not a one-watch movie at all.
No.
Like it's
no.
Yeah, I agree with everything you were saying. I completely agree with. I didn't know what to make of it the first time I saw it. I watched it with a roommate in 2001 on DVD, and I remember liking things about it because I was still an aspiring filmmaker even back then. So I watched things like that. The story I didn't get, where it went I didn't understand, but I remember it scaring me. because of imagery and things. The thing about this movie, and one of the things my paper focuses on, is it's a horror movie that leaves you with things. And the things it leaves you with scare you for years and years and years when you see certain imagery or hear certain sounds, or somebody mentions something like corridors. I was stationed on an aircraft carrier when this came out. So those long empty P-ways and the little drip sounds, like that stuff freaked me out after I saw this movie. Like it does that stuff to you. And I love a horror movie that can affect you in that way, as opposed to a jump scare, so
yeah,
which this movie has one of, and it's a really crafty jump scare, by the way.
Oh yeah, which one are you referring to?
The one where he sees the peanut butter and Oreos on the ground. This is basically when Hank is going in to salvage. He's going to take all those coins. And that's another thing. This movie has tons and tons of micro plant and payoffs all over the script. I mean, it's so amazing. Like the Hank character, just everything he's talking about, and the fact that they give you that little detail between Hank and is it Phil? Yeah. And it's like, that stuff builds, and it's not just there. It's there for good character development and contrast, but at the same time, it builds to something that adds to the story. But that scene where Hank is coming out of getting the coins, and the place is just dark and it's lit, so you just see that flashlight and you see the lens flare, and then you just see the silhouette, and they give you that little musical cue that almost just sounds like a shutting door. And it's not a crazy jump scare. It's just a small, cute jump scare that gets Hank going crazy.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I was afraid of the dark, and that scene just kind of ignites that old fear. So,
because at the time of the movie, when that happens, you don't know what is going on in this movie or what's supposed to scare you. You're pretty sure it's not like a monster. So is it people? What is it? So when he's going, and that's where this movie gets you, is this like, he's going through these dark corridors and he's got his headphones on, of all things. I would never take away my sense of hearing.
I reacted to the same thing. I was, no fucking way would I ever walk around in an abandoned insane asylum and wear headphones. So I'll like, no.
Yeah, Hank's a unique guy, and that's the first time I think I ever saw Josh Lucas, and he kicked ass in this movie, as did the whole cast. But
he's really good, and of course, always a joy seeing David Caruso.
Yeah, man.
But I have to say that the guy who kind of steals this show is, of course, Peter Mullen playing Gordon.
Peter Mullen's brilliant actor,
awesome.
Yeah.
But there's one line of dialogue in this movie that's really just very specially delivered. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Are you talking about Caruso's "fuck you"?
Oh yeah, and let's watch that right now.
Oh yeah.
Hey, fuck you.
I get a kick out. I've never gotten sick of that part when he does. It's actually a really big GIF. It's a famous GIF. Even a lot of people don't know what movie it's from, but just that nice zoom in, that tilt zoom in.
Yeah, the zoom in is what does it, kind of. and his long prolonged "fuck you."
Yeah, fuck you. Yeah. And Brendan Sexton III he was a great actor. He's still around. He still does good work. But the guy that played his name is Stephen Javeden. He's the co-writer of the movie. He wrote it with Brad Anderson.
Oh,
He's
really?
the guy that's in there looking at the tapes and stuff. That wants to go back and be a lawyer. I don't think I ever saw him in anything again ever after this, but he was great.
He was really good.
He was really good in this, and he gave him his own character some of the really good dialogue of the movie. A lot of the stuff about not Mary Hobbs, but of the treatment therapy, and the crazy witchcraft, crazy dialogue of those awful like incest rapes and stuff like that. That was some crazy stuff.
And that's kind of the thing about this movie. What is your interpretation of how it ends? What is this movie about?
So with the first time I saw it, and I couldn't figure it out. because of the emphasis on things like the asbestos and, they had said like a lot of inmates would come back and squat. They wanted to be, and that's a true thing that inmates of mental hospitals do when they close down, is they feel a certain familiarity and they want to go back into them. So for a while you're like, okay, is this movie going to tell me that like these people are going to become the new mental? I mean, that's kind of the way I think the marketing was. Now these people are the mental patients, like going into an abandoned mental hospital. And you're sitting there thinking it's going to be because of the chemicals and the asbestos. It's going to make them all go mad. And the movie does a good job of making you think that's kind of what's going on. But it drops in the little Simon voice at the beginning, which makes you go, wait a minute. So it misdirects.
Yeah, when he's watching the wheelchair and he just hears
that imagery.
Like, hello, Gordon.
That imagery is just, okay. So real quick, deviating from this, I sat in this living room with a girlfriend about 4 years ago, and I told her about this movie. I put it on, and she's like, "Is it going to be scary?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's scary, but it's good." When that part came up, the very beginning of the movie, and hello, Gordon, she goes, "Turn it off. I'm done. I'm just done. I can't." Like, I'm already done. I can't. That voice is the creepiest thing I've ever heard. Just turn this movie off. I'm like, okay. That's how effective that is. But to answer your question, I think, I mean, it's still to this day, like I love talking about it. And my paper didn't really have anything much to do with the plot as much as it did about the atmosphere created. But the little subtle details that it drops at the end of Gordon's phone. The whole time, was he talking to anybody on the phone? No, he wasn't.
No,
did he break
in his mind?
Did he break the phone when he fell? Was the phone already broken the whole time? Like little details like that. I mean, obviously they also, the script talks about how stressed this guy is. His life. He's got this new baby. He's a little bit older. They need this money really bad. He's going to have to fold the company, all this shit. And then that place driving him crazy. I mean, you could just classify it as that. I'd say there's 3 or 4 different interpretations of how this movie concludes, but because of all the good misdirection, you can kind of choose your own avenue. You could say it was Simon's spirit, and I like to think that it was a spiritual thing with Simon. Because
that's my thought on my new watch of this. I think it's a paranormal story.
Yes,
especially the first time I saw it, I was actually I was hung up on the whole thing of patients coming back. So it's like, has Gordon been a patient here? Has he forgotten? Has he kind of buried it because he was standing in the room hanging up pictures? But that makes a lot more sense when you think that he's kind of just possessed by someone who is stuck in this place.
And he's clearly not going to leave. And
no,
I love the way the movie ends, but I would love to see a follow-up where the people, the business suits go there and they go, "Hey, so is this done?" And they just see dead bodies everywhere. And
Session 10.
Gordon's staring at the wall of pictures. But, when you find out that not only did he kill his wife and apparently the dog,
his kid and his dog,
his infant child, that puts a really sour taste in your mouth. And they even do a little bit of audio there to give this quiet, subtle suffocating of the kid. And it's gnarly. And John, John loves this movie too, but he talks about how depressing it is and how it's one of those horror movies that it doesn't have a rock song at the end of it. It's very like, when the credits start to roll, it's basically just added sound design with that 4-track tape going on. There's no music in this thing, By the way, the Climax Golden Twins did an amazing job on one of the eeriest scores maybe ever. I'm not saying it's one of the best scores, but it's fucking eerie and it works perfectly in every scene that it's dropped in this movie. I downloaded the whole soundtrack. And it's just these sounds. It's just the sounds that you hear through the movie. There's no cohesive kind of song. It's just these sounds, It's pretty great.
Yeah, the sound design is amazing in this movie, and it's kind of like, I'd say it deserves some kind of a big award or recognition based on the fact that this is a low budget movie. It was made for, I have the numbers here. It had a budget of $1.5 million. And
Went a
of
long
course,
way, man.
that's nothing for a big picture like this. When you think of like the cost of only cameras and sound equipment, actors,
Yeah.
probably the sets were kind of cheap because they just used what they had. So
Yeah.
they've also made a lot of use of that money. They put it in the right places.
They put it in the right place.
And the tapes alone of Mary Hobbs is kind of like, if you just want to freak yourself out, just go sit in a mental hospital and play those tapes, and you'll probably just die of fright.
All the
because
tapes are on YouTube as well, and they've got there's one that you can click on, and it's just got that crazy picture of Mary Hobbs, you know, like with the cut chest and stuff. It's just fucking crazy. You just sit there and you're watching that, and you're listening to all the Simon dialogue. And Simon's not the only creepy one, but
no, not at all.
And John said we think that might be the scariest horror movie voice ever. Like, it's just rocks you to your core. I mean, we'd have to listen to more, but man, it is up there for sure.
It's kind of a blend of several different things that makes something scary, because it's kind of, it has like a part of the child in her, it has a part of the woman in her, it has the part of a man. So it's kind of this beast of a voice that just has many layers. And I don't want that voice to be my wake-up alarm on my phone. No thanks.
Yeah, I live in the weak and wounded, and then that laugh.
Yeah,
that maniacal
the laugh, and of course, like the wobbling of the tape, because it's on what do you call those kind of tapes?
Yeah, the 4-track tapes.
Yeah. Which makes them all go like,
yeah. Well, every time
like,
he says like where they live, it's all ooh,
yeah,
whoa.
Yeah. And that alone is just horribly creepy.
Everyone in this movie is like naive or ballsy, because even him, he's sitting in that dark room by himself. He stays after everyone leaves and turns the generator back on, and he just sits in there and listens to those tapes in that creepy tape room. God, these guys are just crazy.
He's either very dumb or very, very brave.
Or again, though, but like, doesn't it feel like the script is? And I love that all these actors are so diverse. Their acting styles are all extremely different from each other. And that reflects because the characters are so different from each other. But it's almost like, with maybe the exception of Brandon Sexton III's character, you know, the nephew, with the exception of him, it seems like everyone is going crazy. Or they're starting to get obsessed with something. You see that like Phil starts turning on Gordy.
Tensions are building.
Yeah, tensions are building. He's gonna screw him over, and then you know the lawyer guys are sitting in there listening to those tapes, and even giving Brendan Sexton III's character that hallway scene with the lights going out and
chasing the light. That
which
scene
is
is
fucking
amazing.
crazy amazing. Like even that gives him this I think I'm losing my shit thing. So everyone has their moment to like really be overtaken by the place, even though it's only one who ultimately did all the killing. And they don't show, that's where you save your money. There's no gore factor to this movie. None. There's no gore factor.
No, very little. There's just this, like, a couple of small scenes where the metal prod is used to like stick it in his eye.
Yeah.
But that's the only scene. Other than that, this movie is just about creepiness, atmosphere, and just basically the characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's.
Have you ever seen the deleted? There's an entire deleted subplot that you can find in this on the
of the woman,
of the homeless woman. Yeah. And I really enjoy those scenes for what they are. They add a new level of creepiness and a new layer to the story. But I understand why they took them out. It was confusing people. Is this Mary Hobbs? And it also gives you a little bit more to go on as far as like the story is no longer quite as ambiguous because she seems to be scared of these guys. So are we coming to the conclusion that they're all going to go crazy? And she knows that. So it was a good idea to cut it out, but it's kind of fun to go back and watch those sometimes.
Yeah, it's cool as like a compendiary, but I agree with them taking it out of the movie because it kind of made it even more confusing. This is already a movie that has many things going for it, so you don't need to have like everything in there just to on purpose make people unsure about what they've actually seen, because that's a mistake many movie makers, in my opinion, make. They try to make their stuff purposely too like opaque, that it's kind of like, oh, you didn't understand it. Well, it's not, you're not meant to understand it. It's just the way it is. And sometimes that just tells me that even the filmmakers didn't really know what they were trying to say.
Yeah. And this one, it's, Brad Anderson has quoted many times that it's not a very complex plot. It's the way the storytelling and the filmmaking is that it does that to you because it disorients you. It makes you think about it and it makes you not understand it. That's the purpose of why he made the film the way he made it. It wasn't freaky jump scares and monsters, but the plot is fairly, once you understand it like we do after seeing it 50 times or whatever. I mean, you don't have to watch it that many times. You can come to your own conclusion pretty quick, but it's not a complex story. Once you go, okay, that element was there, this element was here, this was here. It's so well made to keep you not understanding what's going on. And there's nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, it's brilliant. This movie tells you were talking about the budget. Like this, I mean, God, so it was his buddy who shot it. He wrote it, he directed it, he edited it. He had a couple people he knew. There's a tiny cast of like 8 people total. This movie shows anybody that if you just know what you're doing, and well, if you're talented, you know what you're doing, you're focused on your story and you're focused on the filmmaking, you can make something as effective as anything ever made with something tiny if you're good enough at it, And this movie got Anderson lots and lots of work afterwards. Unfortunately, he didn't go on to do a whole lot of movies, though. I love Trans-Siberian. I love The Machinist.
Machinist is amazing.
Machinist is great. If you haven't seen Trans-Siberian, that's the other
I haven't, so I'm gonna have to get that.
It's really good. It's really good. It's very suspenseful. Climax Golden Twins come back to do the sounds, the score.
And is it with Woody Harrelson?
Yes, with Woody Harrelson. It takes place on the Trans-Siberian, the train. It's beautiful and it's very original. But yeah, he's one. He went on to do tons of stuff like Fringe, and I think he did some Lost or The Shield. He did lots of The Shield and The Wire. Like that stuff's great.
Yeah. I love The Shield.
Yeah, me too. But this is that vehicle for him. He did 2 other movies before this, but they were kind of, just getting started movies. But this is the one that put him on the map and got him a lot more work and bigger budgets and bigger stars,
So basically, this is one of those little movies that could. And do yourself a favor and find this movie, either buy the Blu-ray or see if it's streaming or renting somewhere. Sit down, have a dark room, and just try to just go with the flow, because if you kind of let yourself go into this story, you'll find that you're going to be really drawn in.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely what you say, turn the lights off, turn the volume up, because it's so much of the frightening aspects of this movie are in what you hear. And if you don't hear it all properly, then you're missing out on something. So.
And if you don't like this movie, well,
hey, fuck you.
Fuck you. Want to thank you, Ben, for coming on the show and discussing this little movie.
Thank you.
My little show will be back in a week from now, and here's a little new ending outro. Watch Cinema Golf Stuff, and remember, stay cult.